Hello everyone and welcome to the Proudfoot podcast. Today in our 31st episode, we are going to finish talking about multiclassing in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So let's get started. Last week, we talked about everything to do with multiclassing except for spellcasting. And that's because, like spellcasting the first time, it's complicated, and multiclassing is just going to make it more complicated. But don't worry, it's not that bad. We're going to get through it in 5 minutes, and then you're going to know how to deal with multiple spellcasting classes. So remember, when you multiclass, you can multiclass into as many classes as you'd like, as long as you meet the prerequisites. So for every spellcasting class you have, you're going to need to consolidate your spell slots and the spells you know and can prepare. That part's a little bit easier. It's going to be determined by each individual class, but the spell slots are going to be a calculation based on your total level in each of these classes with some modifying coefficients for the math people. Okay, so spells known, spells prepared. This is basically how we get to have spells in D&D. Either we're a known caster or we're a prepare caster. And yeah, wizards, but they prepare as well, technically just from a limited list rather than the full list. If you have both a prepare and a known caster, or just two prepare casters or two known casters, what you do is you go to your class, you look at, for the level you are in that class, how many spells you would know. And if you're prepare, you look at how many spells you'd be able to prepare. So let's consider an example where we're 2 levels in Bard and 2 levels in Cleric. For a Bard, we would know 5 spells at level 2, and we'd only be able to cast first level spells. Likewise, if you are a level 2 Cleric, you'll be able to prepare a certain number of spells equal to 2, your Cleric level, plus your Wisdom modifier. Now, it says that you could cast at this level, and the key nuance part there is at this level, meaning the Cleric level you're at. So like with the Bard, you can only prepare up to first level spells because that's what your Cleric level allows you to cast. So it's kind of modeling that at this level in the class you're at, that's what you would be able to reach. So that's what you're able to prepare. When you want to cast spells from the Bard list, you have to use your Charisma modifier because that's your spell casting ability for a Bard. Likewise, with the Cleric, you would use Wisdom because that's their spell casting ability. And on top of that, if you went the route of using a spellcasting focus, each class has its own focus, so you need to be carrying around 2. So those are all the rules when it comes to preparing and knowing spells and how you're going to be casting them. Now let's talk about spell slots. To determine how many spell slots you have available, you need to determine your casting level, and your casting level is determined based on the following equation. For every level you have in full casters, that adds. For every level you have in half casters, that adds divided by 2 rounded down. And for every level you have in a third caster, that adds divided by 3 rounded down. Okay, so that was a little bit cumbersome to say, but let me try saying it a different way. So let's give an example. Let's say we've multiclassed into 3 different classes. We have 4 levels in Fighter as an Eldritch Knight, so we have spellcasting. We have 3 levels in Paladin, and we have 3 levels in Wizard. So that's 4 Fighter, 3 Paladin, 3 Wizard. Wizards are full casters, meaning we add 3 right away. Paladins are half casters, so we divide our Paladin level by 2, which means 3 divided by 2 rounded down is 1. So now we add 3 to 1 and we're at 4. Finally, for our Eldritch Knight Fighter, which is a third caster, we divide 4 by 3 and round down, which is also 1. So our total caster level is 5. Now our total level is not 5. If we add all that up, we have 4, 7, 10, right? So our total level is 10, but our caster level is 5 because we don't have 3 multi-classings of full casters. If we did, it would be 10 because we'd add it all the way through. We have a half and a third in there. So to determine how many spell slots we have, we go to the table on page 165. This is the multi-class spellcaster table. It's also called spell slots per spell level. I call it the spell slot table. It's just a table that tells you how many spell slots you have. Fun fact, this is the same progression table as all the full casters. So if you want, you can use that table and it's going to be the same thing. Just put in your spell casting level. So for our example, we were a 5th level caster with the 4 levels in Fighter, 3 levels in Paladin, and 3 levels in Wizard. Then we get 4 first level spell slots, 3 second level spell slots, and 2 third level spell slots. Now, here's something interesting about that combination. If we are a Eldritch Knight Fighter at 4th level, we don't have third level spell slots. We don't even have second level spell slots. Same with the paladin. They only have first level spell slots. The wizard has second level spell slots, but no one has third level spell slots. So what do we do with these extra spell slots? Well, you can use them to upcast spells. So if you have spells that say at higher levels, you can use your third level spell slots to cast those spells at a higher level. Or if you didn't happen to take any spells that upcast, you can still use a third level spell slot to cast a first level spell. You just don't upcast it, and that's fine. It's not optimal, but it's still fine. Finally, we have pack magic. So how does pack magic integrate into all this? Well, as you recall, warlocks, they aren't considered spellcasters. They aren't a full caster. They're not a half caster, not a third caster. They're warlocks. When they hit level 20, they'll still only have 4 5th level spell slots, but they're all 5th level. What happens is your pack magic spell slots pool into your spellcasting spell slots. So let's go back to our fighter, paladin, wizard. Let's say they decide to dabble in warlock next for whatever reason. So they add 1 level of warlock to all that. That means they've added 1 first level spell slot. So rather than having 4 first level spell slots, they have 5. They still have the 3 second and the 2 third, but now the warlock at first level has all these spell slots available to them. And that means they can cast all their spells using these spells. So your warlock spell list shares spell slots with your spell casting ability. All the same rules about your spell casting ability being used for the right class still applies, but for warlocks, they get to pool spells, which is a great way for warlocks to expand the amount of spells they can expend in a day. It does mean you have to multiclass, which means that you don't necessarily get the highest progression in that class, but you do get other synergies that can be quite fun to play with. That's everything I wanted to talk about today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Eddie Proudfoot podcast. If you enjoyed it, please follow us on Instagram, Spotify, or Twitter. And as always, may the gods have mercy on your soul.